13 ABC Action News. Now, your table is ready. Join 13 ABC's Jeff Smith with the decision makers of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. This is the Roundtable.
Welcome back on this Sunday afternoon to the Roundtable program. If you are an avid viewer, we so appreciate you coming back with us. We have, coming up in our second segment, talk about the efforts by the American Red Cross here in the area, not only on disaster response, but some of the programs that they have coming up, and something that happens later tonight you may want to check into. But in our first segment, what a week it has been for parents, for students, for anybody who calls this home. It's been a tough week to get through. The problem is we keep having these weeks where we are dealing with these very emotional situations. I'm so glad to have with me Eric Young and Crystal Barco, both from Harbor, representing early childhood mental health services and social work, etc. We appreciate both of you spending some time here on the Roundtable. Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it just kept piling up on everybody. We in the news, we see it, it's our job, we go through it, we kind of filter it a little bit as much as we can. But Eric, is this getting to be one of those things for all of us? It's a real burden, yes?
Yeah, it can weigh heavily especially if we keep continuing to expose ourselves to it and continuing to view these events. There's a saturation point that we can take on. And it's important that we take a break away from the news and how much the stuff that's going on and how much we're taking in with it. So it can compound on us and have an effect on us, and we can start to become, experience a range of emotions. We can become anxious, we can become fearful, we can become insecure. We can feel helpless in situations where we don't have any control over some of these events that have been happening. And feeling like we want to act down or do something in that response.
Right.
So it can trigger a variety of emotions in us.
You know what? And we were talking about young people and how they deal with it. And for anybody who's a parent out there, this was another week where you're questioning whether or not this happened at 3 o'clock on Monday, right when kids were just about to get off the bus, come in, they see mom and dad. If they are home, they have the TV on, and you start questioning. Do I show them? Do I tell them what's happening? I saw something very interesting this week. They brought out a thing that Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood said long ago. I don't know if you saw the same thing, but he said, when I was a young boy and my mom saw that I saw something that was tough to handle, she always said, look for the good that people are doing in times of bad. Look for those good people out there. And we saw stories of that, but the question being, I guess, in handling this with our young people, and now we are 6 days removed from what happened in Boston, but what is the best advice you put out there to try to tackle issues that are so heavy?
Definitely try to limit the screen time kids are getting. The younger they are, the more they are affected by what they're seeing on TV. As a parent, try to remain as calm as you can. Especially young kids look to their parents as to how they should respond to situations they're not familiar with. Talk to them.
It doesn't seem like there's any 100% correct answer
no, there's definitely not.
On if you shelter them from it, they find out about it at school.
Right, definitely not try to have a media blackout in your home or anything like that, because they will find out. We're just bombarded with information all the time now on phones and TV and everything and computers, and the kids are going to see it. So the best thing is to just talk to them about it. Only give them as much information as they want. Just answer their questions about whatever's going on.
I wanted to show folks at home earlier this week on 13 ABC Action News at Noon. We posted a poll on our website, 13abc.com, and we were asking people if they felt this latest tragedy. And as we saw as the week went on, there were a couple more things that happened that just added weight onto our shoulders. Take a look. We asked people, since 9/11, we've been exposed to a number of violent acts in the U.S., the latest being the Boston Marathon bombings. Do you think the frequency of violent outbreaks has desensitized you? Well, 27% of the people that voted in our online poll said, yes, I'm starting to feel numb to these events. 73% said, no, I still feel very affected by the violence. Eric, we had asked before we came out here, we were talking about this very question, and it didn't have the weight of 9/11. It didn't have the weight of Sandy Hook. It was still unbelievably tragic on Monday. First responders coming out of there saying it looked like a war zone, a war scene. What do you take from the poll results? What do you take from the thoughts that there is a lot of desensitization going on?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in that 73% number is that we're still a young country experiencing, these are new events for us, and each event is still shocking as the last one. To where other countries, these are more common events that are happening, and still shocking to those people as those go on. But I think us in America, this is a new phenomenon for us.
Wars happen other places. That's our mindset. Exactly. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, everything happens in other places, and this doesn't happen to us. We don't experience these things, and when these things happen, it's still that mentality that these aren't supposed to happen to us. It's new to us and a new experience, and so as each event comes, it's still that shock and still that disgust and trying to wrap our minds around. Why are these happening? And when you have innocent people, especially children, that are dying from these things, that seem to have no connection, or they don't have any connection to the person who's responsible for these events. We're in disbelief, and we're confused as to why these things are happening.
Monday's event trying to explain that yes, there is evil in the world to your young people, or even to yourself, trying to figure out why it happens. On Wednesday night, we are taping Thursday morning. We don't know the answers that have come in the days following. Obviously, we're airing here with you on Sunday, but Wednesday night, we saw a huge explosion at a fertilizer plant outside of Waco, Texas, and once again, death coming from this scenario, and we're adding on again and again and again. As I asked you, and I'll give you the same question, talking about that desensitization, do you think as a culture we're becoming numb, or are you seeing that in the people you work with?
I think there has been an increase in overall violence, I think, and especially video games that older children play and things like that, and movies and TV and everything. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's different from person to person, the desensitization.
Are you leading that to be people, young people, even people who play violent video games, have a hard time distinguishing between reality and fiction?
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I think it just depends on, everybody's different, and everyone reacts to things differently. But I think in that number, that 73%, we're still very shocked by it. I would agree with Eric that it's still new to us, that violence happens other places. It doesn't happen here in America, and people are not used to that yet.
What about the mindset? And as I said, we're taping here on Thursday. We have no answer as to the suspect who did it Monday. People have had the mindset wrapped around them. I was talking with my class this week. When the word terrorist came up, you thought that couldn't be somebody from America. There are no terrorists in America, but when you go back to the bombing of the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, that was an act of terrorism.
Right.
What does it do to our psyche? How do folks handle it if this was domestic terrorism versus somebody from one of those outer factions that we have become so familiarized with over the last couple of years?
I think we stay.
Does it change it?
I think we stay strong. I think we press forward. We continue in our day-to-day activities, and we show strength and we show unity, and we come back stronger. And some of the talks already around the Boston situation is to come back to the marathon even bigger and show our strength and our numbers, and show that we're not going to let something like this or let these events defeat us.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we don't become victims in the situation of this magnitude.
Yeah. When we go back to Terry Nichols and McVeigh and look at what happened there, and people are like, oh, you know, these were two Americans that did such a horrific thing. What's your answer to the question I asked of Eric as far as people being able to handle the fact that this may be a domestic terrorism situation?
I think just even personally, I think it's more disappointing when you think of that someone who is born and raised here is the one who did it. But I think it's different for everyone, as far as it's easier to be angry and mad if there's someone who wasn't from here or someone that actually ended up doing it.
Let me ask you both this, and as we continue our conversation here with Eric Young and Crystal Barco from Harbor, how long is too long to hold on to these feelings? With each tragedy that happens, obviously it's fresh. Sandy Hook in December, and then Boston happens, and then more death as far as Texas this week. But when should people start thinking, man, I got to stop being so consumed with this, or I should be over this by now? Why don't you start us off?
It's, as I keep saying, it's different for everybody. I think if you get to the point where you're having intrusive thoughts or nightmares or things about what's going on, you're finding it hard to fall asleep at night, and it's affecting your daily life, then it's time to get help from someone, as far as a therapist, or start talking more openly to friends and family about what's going on in your feelings.
What if you notice your kids talking about it a lot?
For a short period of time, some of that can be normal, but again, if it goes on too long, or you start to become concerned about your child, that it's a month later or 4 or 6 weeks later, then it's probably time to try to seek help.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, if you notice changes just in your emotions, you're irritable, your sleep's being disrupted. As Crystal mentioned, you have intrusive thoughts, you're constantly thinking about it, you're more depressed, you're more negative, irritability, things of those. It's time to step back, engage in some positive things, get out and exercise, just go for a walk, watch what you're eating, make sure that you're sleeping well, watch some fun things, you know, enjoy some new things, watch some comedy, go out with your friends, socialize, and watch if you're isolating yourself too.
Yeah.
With it, reassure your children, reassure them of the positive things. I think we can look at the heroism that was displayed in the aftermath and focus on those good events and the good in people, that people do have inherently good qualities and do heroic things. Focus on those things and watch where you're concentrating your energy.
In our last minute, you're an avid runner yourself,
Yes.
and we have learned over the years the running community is a tight-knit community.
They are.
And you just said it in just the last couple of minutes. You said the Boston Marathon could come back stronger than it even was this year. You see that happening?
Yeah, and being a runner, there's a thing when especially when you do distance running, there's a lot of trials and tribulations that you go through. You go through injuries, and you push yourself, and some mental toughness that goes through.
Yeah. And
the running community is great. They're there to support. They do a lot of charity events, and there's strength in that. And there is a sense of family and community within the running community itself. So the idea that them pulling together is not abnormal at all,
Yeah.
and to see that and have that type of response.
I want to thank both of you for spending some time to talk. I know it's a weighty issue, and it's a hard topic to get through, but we so appreciate you taking some time to share it with our audience. If they want to find out more about Harbor, go to harbor.org, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you so much. Stay right there. We've got our second segment coming up right after this.